that had been issued by the DCI asking members of Gakuyu-affiliated schemes to come here at 9 a.m. and file complaints on they're saying their money had been embezzled by the Gakuyu schemes. So they were able to come here as early as 6 a.m. today, but only a few were able to file their complaints today. The rest were not able to file the complaints because officials from DCI came out, and when they saw the large number of people who had turned up, they asked the people from Nairobi County to go back, and they were set to be called. This made the members from Nairobi County very agitated, and they started turning chaotic. They barricaded the roads, started screaming, and even putting roads on the streets. Olive, it was not a pleasant situation that forced police officers to come out and start throwing tear gas at them. One of the members who was inside here is Petronilla, and she's going to just tell us if she was able to file her complaint and what happened. Petronilla, you can start off by telling us, were you able to file your complaint today?
Mimi nilikuja hapa juu ya kutangaziwa ati kuko watu wale walikuwa wamesevu pesa kwa Ekesa wakunje hapa. Sasa mimi vile nilikuja hapa nilikuja kitu kama saa 5. Kukaambiwa watu wasikane 10 mimi kukaa hapa ndio maaskari wakakunja. Hata hakuna kitu tumeambiwa. Tumeanza kukimbishwa na nini na tiangasi. Hata hatukusaidiwa, hakuna mtu hata tumeona. Sasa tunauliza tutafanya nini juu ya pesa yetu? Kama mimi nilikuwa nimeandikwa kasi ya Meindi tukiwa na msijana yangu, tukasevu hiyo pesa juu tuweze kujisaidia. Sasa saa hii ninaona hakuna hata mwelekeo hata kidogo. Sasa ningeuliza serikali itusaidie, hata Uhuru akiwa mahali juu tuliona akiwa amepigwa picha na Gakuyu, ulikuwa unaenda kwa ofisi yake unaona wamepigwa picha wakiwa nini, wakiwa wanasalimiana. Sasa ndio tukaanza kusevu pesa juu tuliona hiyo sio pesa ya uongo juu president wetu wako. Sasa hata yeye aingilie juu tuweze kusaidika.
Ulikuwa umesave pesa ngapi hivi?
Mimi nilikuwa nimesave 200,000 na nimenunua hiyo mburoti ya kwao ya nini ya Kilimambogo.
Uliweza kuona the land ya Kilimambogo?
Sijaweza kuona, namba tu ndio waliniandikia.
Ulikuwa na hofia kupata maneno magani leo?
Mimi nilikuwa nipate maneno vile walisema tukunje, watuambie endeni mungonje pesa yanyu haitapotea. Sasa vile tutamtangazia wakati mtakunja kuchukua pesa yanyu hata ama kutuwekewe kwa akaunti. Sasa hakuna kitu kama hiyo tumeambiwa. Hata hatukuambiwa kitu, hata hakuna mkubwa hata mmoja tumeona akituambia nini ama nini. Sasa wale tumeona wamekuja kutufukuza na matiangasi. Kwanza mimi nimeanguka pale hivi nikiwa nimekimbia.
So Olive, maybe we can be able to talk to another member who has been here since 6 a.m. today, and she can tell us if she was able to be serviced, to get some service today.
Okay, I was here by around 9, and I was very fortunate to be registered. I was very fortunate to be registered, but unfortunately I was waiting for leaders to talk about it. I was either expecting the Gakuyu, the director of the circle, to talk about it, but he didn't appear in the scenario. So what happened that we had the crowd, we were gathered together whereby people were registering outside after they were told to come out of the offices. We were registering here outside. Then we had people screaming all over, and then police were here, and everything turned to be opposite of what we were expecting.
How much money had you saved with the Keza?
Okay, I had already saved 248,000 in the Keza.
What were you planning to do with this money?
Okay, I needed to invest in them. I needed maybe to build a plot or do anything. I had plans for it, let me just say so.
Okay. So Olive, the DCI has said that he's going to give a notice on when he is going to call back these members so that they can continue filing their complaints. Back to you.
Thank you, Lillian. Now we cross over to Parliament, where the Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho was scheduled to appear before the Devolution Committee of Senate. Let's listen in and see what his submissions are.
distinguished honorable senator of Nandi can engage in this kind of talk?
I'm campaigning for him, Chairman.
This is not the right. This is not the right.
For his constituents, that you did your job.
So
no, Governor.
Now, Governor,
I withdraw.
Yeah.
Withdraw, please. Yeah. Unless have you finished? And don't go through that line.
Chairman, this really is a friendly meeting, and it's nothing personal. And I just want us to achieve the purpose as to why we are all here.
And I would tell you, if there are no cameras, you'd not be hearing this. This, I know it is not meant for this committee. I know people are talking to different people when we are seated here.
Absolutely.
Please, let us deal with the issues.
Absolutely. So, Chairman, I rest my case. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. But Governor, the last one. The last time I checked, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, when he talked about one of his cabinet secretaries, said, if you will carry your cross. If you're not doing your work, you'll carry your cross. But contrary to what's happening in Mombasa, you are defending your CEC. What's the difference?
The difference is very simple. I've also heard President Uhuru Kenyatta, who once said the CSS must be allowed space and time to deliver on his manifesto, on his government's agenda. And I have said here, and I want to repeat, I have no apology for me to make that I will rightly defend the executives when they are right. Unless the Senate here decides to pass a law that will allow us, for example, to cede some of our functions to the MCAs, then we'll be happy to do that. But I will not allow an MCA to intimidate an executive simply because he did not award contract, simply because he did not allow certain functions to be taken away from the executive to the assembly. Because there will be a contradiction. For example, the contentious issue that was brought forward when my chief officer was summoned was on streetlights. So the question is, shall we give the streetlights to the assembly members to go and execute, or shall we execute for them and then they provide oversight? So I would not allow my chief officer or my executive to be for non-issues. I want to repeat, or maybe reiterate this point before you, Chairman, that if there is grounds valid enough that meets the threshold that the law demands, I will be the one sacking my minister. I will not wait for impeachment. I'll send them home. But there has to be basis. Not on personal grounds, not because you've met on some corridor and you did not agree on a personal matter and then we use that and take it to the assembly. No. People in Mombasa believe in relationships. Senator and will confirm this. Mombasa is a small place. We know each other, we live with each other, and we have lives beyond politics. So I would not encourage personal scores to be settled on the floor of the assembly. No. I will stand my ground, Mr.
Now, for a bit of background on that story, the governor for Mombasa, Ali Hassan Joho, is pitted against the county assembly, which has threatened to impeach his transport CEC by the name of Taufik Balala. That is after 3 CEC members failed to appear before various committees of the county assembly. Also invited to appear before that Senate committee on devolution is the county speaker, Aharub Khatri, who will now appear on Thursday after begging off today on claims of being indisposed. Now, staying with parliamentary matters, Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i says the government is keen on using all channels of governance to ensure it implements its projects. Matiang'i spoke after a consultative meeting with Senate Speaker Kenneth Lusaka and Senate committee chairpersons at the Senate main chambers. Here's what he had to say.
Issues of legislation, so we really want to fast track that so that we are able to move forward. 3, continuous consultation with all devolution stakeholders, that is the Senate, Council of Governors, and county assemblies. And 4, we are saying congruence in public participation, both from the executive and the Senate, to ensure that public interest is upheld in all projects.
They have been forthcoming, candid, and very forthright about the challenges we face. They have pointed out to us the things that we need to do together to move the implementation of government projects forward. And in this very transparent engagement we've come to very useful conclusions, as you've heard read by the Honourable Speaker. And on behalf of
we wait to see how the Super Minister manages the drought situation in the country. And with regard to that, more than 200,000 people in West Pokot County are in dire need of food and water. The county is among 12 that are currently ravaged by drought.
A dry spell has swept across the arid and semi-arid regions in the country, which has resulted to the death of a number of people and livestock. West Pokot County is among areas affected by drought. There is a food and water crisis. A number of people have fled to neighboring Uganda in search of water and pasture for their animals. Dams and water ponds have all dried up.
Nasikia serikali wanazindua miradi kubwa ya kujenga manyumba, lakini kule chini, nyanja za chini kule watu wanaumia na njaa. Watu wanakufa na njaa.
Tunashukuru juhudi ya serikali kukiri ama kutangaza hii hali ya njaa, na matangazo peke yake haitoshi. Inahitaji action kwa haraka sana. Na kitu ikiwa under emergency program haihitaji a lot of bureaucracies. Mipango mingi itachelewesha, na ikichelewa ni maisha ndio inaangamia.
More than 200,000 people are faced with food shortage in the county. The region experienced total crop failure in the previous season.
Hii wadi yangu ya Kiwawa ni wadi ambayo hata mahindi haikutoka hata chini. Haikumea.
A spot check at Karon and Kostei villages paints a grim picture of the situation. The weak can only lie under some of the scattered trees waiting for help.
Tunahofia kwamba kama msaada haitafika kwa haraka, tunaweza poteza watu na hatungependa tufike hiyo stage.
Walemavu imekwama, imeumia kwa sababu ya njaa. Hawana chochote ya uwezo kujitetea.
Residents in this county have started disposing their animals. A cow now goes for 4,000 shillings, but they're still struggling to get buyers. North and Central Pokot are the worst hit. Relief food has been distributed at Shalpo, Chepkobe and Endo. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
That is the situation in West Pokot. Now let's take a look at the situation in Mandera. Many parts of Mandera County, specifically Marothile and Asa Abito wards, are facing an acute water crisis. The main water earth pan has dried up while the others are polluted. The main borehole serving the two wards also collapsed a few days ago. Residents are now relying on water vendors for their daily supply.
In the outskirts of Asabito village is parched earth, which previously held water to serve residents of Marodile and Asabito. Residents say it dried up a month ago. Not far from the parched water pan is another one. This one has water, but it is unfit for human consumption due to pollution. Residents say they have to walk for at least 10 kilometers to fetch water because they cannot afford to buy water from water vendors.
Hii ndio tegemeo letu kubwa ya maji katika Asabito ward na Marodile ward, tuko wote pamoja na hakuna namna nyingine, yani hakuna maji nyingine tunayo.
Uhai tuko nayo kwa wakati ya ukame ni ambayo watabusa ile imenunuliwa na individuals. Tank moja ni 13,000 inaletwa inamwaga kwa tank ambayo tunauziwa shilingi 20 per 20 liter.
The main borehole that used to serve residents of Marodile and Asabito broke down, and the engine now sits idle. The livestock drink water from privately owned shallow well located in the outskirts of Asabito village.
Kitambo hiyo mbuzi amekunywa hii saranga, na hii kunywa hii kesima ya manyewe. Ndio amechukua pesa mingi. Mbuzi moja ni shilingi moja.
Women are hardest hit. Some beg to get the precious commodity on credit, but the seller is adamant. Cash only. The only option they have is about 7 hours away. It is a trek the women have to make. Residents, led by local leaders, are now calling on both the county and the national government to intervene urgently.
I'm appealing to the county and national leaders to move with speed and help the residents of these two towns to get water.
Mandera County government says the county administration is working round the clock to solve the issue.
And, as a county, as a government, we are there to face the reality. It's a drought time, it is in March, and there is water shortages. We'll also come up with other contingent measures if it doesn't rain in the next 10 days.
Ahmed Abdi, NTV, Mandera.
Now let's take a look at what the government position is. The Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Devolution, Hussein Dado, says the ministry has already sent a proposal to Treasury and are waiting for a supplementary budget to be approved by Parliament in order to support people affected by drought. The ministry is seeking 6 billion shillings from Treasury to address the drought.
Sisi tumetuma proposals, tumeitisha zaidi ya bilioni 6 kutoka Treasury. Treasury inangojea bunge ikae wiki hii kupitisha supplementary. Pesa hiyo ikitoka kutoka contingency fund, chakula itapatikana katika sehemu hizi zote, na inshallah tutawasaidia. Mimi mwenyewe nitakuja kama wakati ule, pamoja na yeye akiwa hana nafasi nitakuja mwenyewe tugawanye hizo chakula. Vumilieni na Mwenyezi Mungu atawasaidia. Serikali iko na nyinyi.
On to an international matter, Iranian ambassador to Kenya, Hadi Farajvand, has been recalled to Tehran barely 3 days after the Supreme Court upheld the High Court's decision to have them jailed, 2 Iranian nationals jailed for 15 years. The two, Nasrullah Ibrahim and Abdul Hussein Goli, had been released by the Court of Appeal, but the state lodged an appeal at the Supreme Court, which ordered that they serve the remainder of their term at the Committee Maximum Security Prison. Sources tell NTV that following the Supreme Court's decision, Tehran was very disappointed and subsequently summoned the ambassador to explain how and why the appeal was unsuccessful. The duo was found guilty of planting a 15-kilogram explosive at a Mombasa golf course. They were arrested with bomb-making material, security sources say, and they suspect that the two are members of the elite unit of Iran's Revolutionary Guard that carries out covert foreign missions, including terror attacks. The Kenyan embassy in Cuba, in conjunction with Cuban authorities, are carrying out investigations into circumstances that led to the death of a Kenyan doctor who was in Cuba for an exchange program. Dr. Hamisi Ali Juma died on Sunday in Havana, Cuba, in what was reported as a suicide. Cabinet Secretary of Health Cecily Kariuki and the Mombasa Governor Hassan Joho have sent their condolences to the family of the deceased. Plans are underway to transport the body back to Kenya.
Up to now, we don't have any reports. We are being told that they will do post-mortem today, then they will give us a report.
City lawyer Asa Nyakundi Kibagendi, accused of fatally shooting his 29-year-old son in unclear circumstances, has been taken ill. Nyakundi is said to have suffered health complications while in police custody, prompting the police to send him to the hospital. The lawyer, who is known to handle some of the biggest crime cases, has high-profile clients in his portfolio and is said to have accidentally discharged his weapon while in the car with his son, killing him instantly. The two were from church along Mombasa Road and were heading home to Muthaiga when Nyakundi allegedly shot him while attempting to secure his Glock pistol loaded with 15 bullets. He then rushed him to the Aga Khan hospital, where he was pronounced dead on arrival. Images of Nyakundi there in court representing his various clients. Now, Migori County residents finally have tapped water, and that has greatly changed their lives, particularly in Migori Town, Uriri and Rongo. The piped water is still not at full flow in Rongo, but the change has residents in this county very happy. However, there are those who find it an inconvenience. NTV's Bernardo Juang with that story.
It has taken the African Development Bank and the Migori County government 1.2 billion shillings to fund the water project that will serve a population of more than 192,000 in Migori Uriri towns.
We are happy to report that all our major towns now have clean and safe water. Starting from Migori town, now people have constant and consistent water supply.
We have a number of water utilities which are now functioning. We've done a number of boreholes, we've protected springs and the rest.
Residents here finally see the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel after waiting for decades for clean piped water.
Nafurahia kwa sasa hivi kwa sababu hata ukiangalia hapa mbele hiki ni kioski cha maji. Kwa kipindi cha karibia mwezi mzima maji hayapotea. Hii inadhihirisha wazi kwamba upande wa idara ya maji kwa sasa hivi kazi inafanyika.
The way when you go to these vibandas, you could not know where exactly they were obtaining water. So it is quite easy to eat a meal that was prepared with dirty water. But now we are assured that the water we are using is safe.
For the past 2 years, this town has experienced an acute water shortage, forcing residents to buy water from the polluted River Migori. Health officers say the severe shortage exposed county residents to waterborne diseases. Rongo sub-county lost 8 people to cholera 2 years ago.
Magonjwa yalikuwa mengi sana. Juu tulikuwa tunapata maji chafu lakini sasa hizi tunapata maji safi. Sasa hizi hakuna magonjwa. Maji inakuja kama imetibiwa tayari.
And usually the cholera peak period is with the time we are talking now. It's usually between February, March, April. So as we speak, we are safe. We've not had any incidences of cholera, which has been, or which was a major problem in the past.
There are those who are not happy. Water vendors find the new state of affairs difficult to live with. Water scarcity afforded them the opportunity to earn a living. Availability of the commodity has now put them out of the business.
Mimi kama saizi niko na gari ya maji, inaniumiza upande mwingine kwa sababu gani? Kama iko hapa fully, nitabeba siku gani maji? Nikiletea mtu. Tuseme kwa county government kupeleka maji huko. Na maji inaenda huko. So watu angalie upande wetu.
Sehemu zingine haifai isambazwe sana. Na wacha mali zingine hata sisi tunapata mlo hapo. Yes.
New infrastructure includes the Oyani treatment works, which can handle 20 million liters of water per day. It has a capacity storage tank of 7 million liters. Water will be distributed equally to all needy areas within the catchment of the project. Contractors involved in the project have been warned to work within the timeline.
We have put ultimatum to all our contractors that they must do quality work. Any contractor found doing shoddy job will not be paid and will be terminated.
Bernardo Juang, NTV, in the county of Migori.
Members of a Keza Sacco earlier today blocked or rather disrupted traffic along Kiambu Road, and traders in Gikomba Market staged a peaceful demonstration this morning over bad roads. The traders accuse the Starehe Member of Parliament, Charles Njagwa, of failing to fulfill his promise. The road was impassable as the traders lit fires and barricaded the road with boulders. The traders claim that all efforts to reach their area leaders have been fruitless. Most businesses at the market remained closed throughout the morning hours.
Tulikuwa tunataka tu alesport mahali yako ndio hata kama ni 1 hour. Alafu sasa wakuje ndio atuambie barabara itatengenezwa mpaka lini.
On to another county, Kajiado Governor Joseph Ole Lenku has given doctors under the county's payroll a 2-week ultimatum to shut down their private clinics and chemists to concentrate on public service delivery or face the sack. Lenku was speaking during a spot check of the hospitals in the county, where he has accused some health personnel of using public hospital equipment for personal gain.
Kajiado County has set its sights on medical personnel who have abandoned their duties at public health facilities to concentrate on private businesses. Kajiado Governor Joseph Lenku has ordered an audit of all health staff in the county who are operating private clinics and pharmacies.
Any person who works here as a doctor or a nurse or a medical person and has either a chemist or a clinic in Loitoktok will henceforth be directed to close the clinic if you want to continue in the service of the hospital, or else in 2 weeks we will have all of them removed from our payroll because that is a conflict of interest.
Patients have complained that they are always referred to specific clinics and pharmacies even when such services and medicine were available at the hospital.
Lini kama wale wanatarajia waje hospitalini, lakini tuna shida, hakuna dawa. Tunaomba na hii tusaidie mweke dawa hospitali tuache kuteseka.
Lenku has accused the section of health workers in the county of massive land grabbing and abuse of hospital equipment and medicine.
All the contractors whose work are unsatisfactory, even if they are in use, will not be paid. And any contractor who by now has not commenced the work that was given, the LSO stand cancelled. The LSO stand cancelled, and I have directed the management board of the hospital to immediately take that action in liaison with our procurement office.
The county is currently investigating allegations of land grabbing at Oloitoktok Sub-County Hospital. Eunice Omolo, NTV.
Parents of students at Nyabururu High School stormed the Kisii-based school, paralyzing normal operations. The parents demanded to see their children after more than 20 students were admitted to different hospitals in the region over suspected severe food poisoning.
The cabbage that is suspected to have caused food poisoning in tens of students at Nyabururu High School. The cabbages were found hidden in a thicket and sackloads buried in the principal's compound. According to a neighbor, the vegetables were delivered in 2 lorries last week before the students ate them on Wednesday and Thursday.
Tulipofuatilia tukasikia kwamba hizi cabbage amesipanda kule maeneo pa skimu. Sasa alifuta wale ambao walikuwa kilete suguma, akaanza kuleta hizo cabbage zake ambazo ni kanta 2. Sasa imekuwa ni shida. Aliposikia kwamba watoto wamegonjeka, alionelea hii cabbage ameitapakasisha kila mahala pa nyanzi Nebia grass.
Hundreds of parents stormed the school seeking an explanation, while others wanted to take their children home. Intervention by the County Director of Education, Pius Ngoma, was ignored. According to the Education Director, only 12 students had been admitted at Nyangena Hospital with fever and 2 had been discharged, further explaining that the school would be closed if the situation worsens. The parents, however, still demanded to see their children.
Ni wagonjwa, kwa ukweli watoto ni wagonjwa. Mtoto wangu ni mgonjwa na hata imebidi tumenua madawa. Juu principal alisema tutaenda na watoto nyumbani asubuhi.
The management of the school is accused of covering up the issue. Last Thursday, over 20 students were hospitalized at the Nyangena Hospital, allegedly without full disclosure to the parents.
The school is stable. When we say your children are safe, no doubt.
In some classes today, a number of students were crying, claiming they were denied a chance to speak to their parents. Some parents left the school with their children. Anita Nkonge, NTV.
On to some business news now. Developers' appetite for putting up housing units continues to grow, even as indicators suggest price and rental income could be coming under the strain of oversupply. In the latest development, investment firm Saiton has inked a deal with the State Bank of Mauritius in Kenya, securing a 650 million shillings credit line aimed at helping accelerate some of its projects. This comes even as the Housing Finance Corporation has slashed the cost of some of its housing units by as much as 30%. This in a bid to woo buyers. According to property firm Knight Frank, prime residential prices in Nairobi fell by 4.5% in 2018, driven by the glut in the market.
We went voluntarily to GCR to have them rate us so that our partners, our stakeholders, our financiers can get to know how we are doing. One of the things they said is that Saiton has now been around. By then, 4 years when they wrote about it and said, we would like to have them raise bank debt. They are relying on this mezzanine structure that can be withdrawn by clients anytime based on social media noises. We want to see them put bank debt in their capital structure.
We know and acknowledge that, yes, the government has an intention of supporting the low end of the housing projects for the affordable housing. But beyond that, while we support that program for affordable housing, we still believe as an institution that providing housing for the middle class is also still very vital.
Kenya is the third most advanced country in Africa in regard to the needs around truck volumes after South Africa and Egypt. This is according to an Italian heavy truck and equipment manufacturer, Iveco, which says it is investing 2.7 billion shillings in the Kenyan market. The first phase is an assembly plant in Mombasa, which is expected to assemble about 300 trucks annually and about 5,000 units in 5 years. The firm is looking to tap into the growth of the manufacturing sector in the country.
One of the most advanced countries in Africa. If I well remember, in Africa, Kenya is, in terms of volume, market number 3. So definitely, strategically, is very, very important.
The whole setup is in 3 phases. We have now just finished the second phase of our operation. The final stage is to create centers that's in Nakuru, Kisumu, and the major towns. Mombasa, we already have a setup. Now, by the time we finish that, we are looking at a good amount, about 2.7 billion shillings.
On to the international scene. In Indonesia, over 77 people have died and dozens are still missing following flash floods that hit the easternmost province of Papua, Indonesia. The news came as Indonesia's disaster agency raised the official death toll from 58, with more than 3 dozen people still missing. Of the Christchurch Mosque massacre. This comes after the alleged shooter behind the Christchurch Mosque attacks had legally bought the 5 weapons, including 2 semi-automatic rifles used in the massacre.
To toughen the country's gun laws after
The Kenya Under-23 national team jetted out to Khartoum ahead of their Africa to Under-23 Cup of Nations Scum Olympics qualifier against Sudan. This match comes after Kenya had advanced with a win over Mauritius in the first round, consequently booking Sudan in the second round. Coach Francis Kimanzi's Chargers will play Sudan on Wednesday, with the second leg set to be played in March 26th at the Kasarani Stadium. The winner of the aggregate will face either of Nigeria or Libya in the third round to determine who graces the 2019 Africa Under-23 Cup of Nations in Egypt, which will act as a qualifier to the 2020 Summer Olympics in Japan.
We are lucky that we have the same group, almost the same group that did the job. And when you hit the first game, everything gets tougher. You know, after the first qualified, it looks easy. After the second one is always tougher. So we expect a tough match. But we are also looking forward for some positive results, of course.
Prepare poa. Itakuwa rahisi. Kenya kwanza tunajua game tunaenda kuface rahisi. Ni ile tu tuna expect positive results. Tunaomba pia wa Kenya tu support results zenye tutaget. Lakini itakuwa rahisi.
And Lionel Messi scored a hat-trick as Barcelona avenged their defeat by Real Betis earlier in the season to move 10 points clear at the top of La Liga. Luis Suarez scored a fine individual effort. A thrilling local derby as Super 8 Premier League entered round 2 over the weekend. Hat-trick hero Collins Omondi plotted Kaongore's downfall by inspiring Kabiria to their first win in 2 games at the Riruta BP Stadium. With a win, Melta, who lost 1-3 to Jericho All-Stars in their opening game, climbed to 8th. At the Kamtoyo grounds, champions Jericho All-Stars survived a scare by twice coming from behind to win 3-2 over visiting Massa. TUK FC posted their first win of the season in a 1-0 win over Team Umeme at the Kabete Cavs grounds. At Makongeni grounds, newcomers Shauri Moyo Sportif made it 2 wins following a 1-0 win over Naisa. And Men's Hockey Premier League defending champions Butali Warriors collected their first victory of the season after seeing off Sailors 2-0 at the City Park grounds. Frank Wanangwe and Calvin Skanu were on target for Butali. In other results of match day 2, KCA University educated Multimedia University, and while Telcom Kenya were awarded a walkover after their opponents JKUAT failed to show up. Multimedia University beat Wolverines 1-0 in the Women's Super League, while Gorillas beat Karate Axiom in the Men's National League. And Dominic Thiem claimed his first Masters 1000 title after coming from a set down to defeat Roger Federer 3-6, 6-3, 7-5 and win the BNP Paribas Open in Indian Wells. Momentum swung in Thiem's favor in the deciding set when he smacked a forehand winner down the line to break Federer and take a 6-5 lead. The Austrian, who had been
report that was filed by Dennis Okari. He's, of course, our investigative editor. It was just another Saturday morning when Martha Wanjiru received a call that would turn her world upside down. Her daughter, in boarding school at Gatanga CCM Girls High School in Murang'a County, had died. Reports on her death have only led to many questions, as the family, which recently buried their daughter, is still overwhelmed by emotions. NTV's investigative editor Dennis Okari tries to find answers to these pertinent questions. Would like to warn our viewers that some of the details in the story may be disturbing. Here is part 1 of Death in the Dome.
And then she said, we've been trying to reach you. Your daughter is unwell. I would like you to come to Naidu Hospital in Thika.
A phone call that any parent who has a child in boarding school dreads.
Then she called again and asked me, are you driving? I told her, yes, I could. She told me, do not come alone. I panicked.
For Martha Wanjiru Wangai, this was going to be the longest drive of her life. Covering a distance of about 76 kilometers in just under 2 hours, it was a drive into the unknown.
So I picked my phone and decided to call my cousin's sister who lives in Thika, around Del Monte area. And I told her what I had been told by the school. And I told her, you know, you just please proceed if you know this hospital, go check for me before I get there.
So I was also shaken. I left whatever I was doing and then headed to Naidu Hospital. When I arrived there, I met the principal, an officer from the education office, a BOG chair, a teacher, and some others who are there.
A dark cloud hung over the hospital. In this video footage, Martha arrives at the hospital at 10:41 a.m. Moments later, she slips away from the reality that has just dawned on her. Death's cold, sullen stream washed over her.
Yes.
Gone too soon, Abby Noel Samuels was only 15 years old. She was not supposed to be here, but in class for preps.
She was always this energetic person. She was always happy. She was the kind of friend that you'd always need.
You think of Abby, you just think of happiness. You think of some just happy things. And even if she's not here now, I know that where she is, she'll just be bringing the same joy that she gave to us.
A heartbreaking send-off for Abby Noel Samuels at her final resting place at the Langata Cemetery. She wanted to be a veterinary doctor one day. Eulogies from her family had one common theme. Noel was just a Form 1 student at Gatanga CCM Secondary School in Moranga County when she met her untimely death on 9th of March 2019.
In the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, and in the name of the Holy Spirit.
In a manner that they need support. A total of 1.1 million citizens around the country are affected generally. As I have said, the situation was caused partly because of the long rains that were insufficient. But as I have said, our position as a country at this point in time is better than what it was last year. We will not have the kind of crisis we had 2 years ago because the efforts on food production have borne fruit. This year, for example, we harvested about 46 million bags of maize, which is the most stable food in the country, which is a record in many years. And therefore, it is important for all of us to understand that aspect. To deal with the situation that we have at hand, and in accordance with the PFM Act, and having agreed with the county governments that every county government must have an emergency fund to deal with emergencies like the one we have at hand, all the counties will provide the first line of intervention. And I want to thank many county governments who have taken up this responsibility and are providing the first line of intervention. I have personally talked with many of the governors, and they are doing their best. However, many of them are now telling us that the national government, as is required by the PFM Act, need to prepare to come in. And already the various ministries, departments, and agencies have been meeting since January. They have prepared the necessary interventions. They have already put together the necessary budgets to effect that intervention. And this morning, the government of Kenya has approved 2 billion shillings to be spent within this week in water tracking, making sure that boreholes and water pans are working, for food supply through the Ministry of Devolution, making sure that food is available, for logistics, and also through the Ministry of Agriculture for the necessary interventions to be carried out. We have also, as part of ensuring that there is resources around the country for people to buy food, all the beneficiaries under our cash transfer program, the vulnerable, old people, people with severe disability, and orphans. The government again has released today 12.4 billion Kenya shillings to 1.2 million beneficiaries around the country that will put them in the position to be able to buy food, especially those who are in areas that are affected by the drought. The PS in charge of social protection, Mr. Marwa, is here, and his minister is away because he's bereaved. So that intervention is rolling out from today to make sure that all those who are on that program receive their resources now in their bank accounts, and to ensure that the necessary interventions are carried out. That is the brief as the government of Kenya we have for the country. There should be no cause for alarm at the moment. The government has put in place, both at the county and at the national level, interventions to manage the current drought. We will work together with all the partners in this space, the UN agencies, and all the other friendly institutions to make sure that we do not have casualties as a result of this drought. Thank you very much. We'll take a few questions just to maybe if there are issues that are not clear to anybody. It's okay. As you might have seen, the CS in charge of devolution has already hit the road with the intervention that government has already had in our budget. What we are releasing today is additional resources to back up what the Ministry of Devolution had in its kitty. And as I told you, county governments are already our frontline mechanism of intervention. That is ongoing. So this is a continuing process. As I have said, resources will be released immediately as from this afternoon, and the ministries will therefore proceed without any delay to ensure that the interventions are carried out together with in partnership with the county governments, so that there is no confusion and there is no duplication, so that the necessary synergy is created. So the intervention is ongoing, just joining what the county governments are doing and what the Ministry of Devolution has already been engaged in doing. To your first question, the government of Kenya is not behind schedule in this intervention. As I told you, the vegetation situation in the country, the analysis by experts, the body condition of livestock, the status of availability of food in the country. That assessment gives us the position when should government intervene. The first line of intervention has already been carried out by counties. We are now coming to the second level of intervention by the national government. So we are not at all, if you speak to the experts, we are not at all behind schedule in government intervening in the drought situation we have in the country. So as for the media reports that some people have died, maybe I will ask the CEO of NDMA to make a response.
Thank you, sir. We heard about the deaths that you are mentioning, specifically in two counties, Baringo, Tiaty, and Turkana. Immediately we got those reports. A team was constituted at county level involving the National Drought Management Authority, national government officials that are there, including the county commissioners, and the experts, water guys, health guys, other people in the county, livestock guys, and they went to those areas. And yes, the deaths were there. But the reports we have gotten from that exercise, they have not been able to link those deaths directly to drought. Those deaths are linked to maybe sickness and other issues. So as far as we are concerned, we don't have any report that can directly link the deaths to drought. And number two, as the DP has said, we are not where we were even in 2017. We are not in emergency drought. And having looked at all the indicators, we feel this kind of drought, having looked at everything, honestly cannot result in such death unless something else has come in. And then number three, we have looked at the DP has said the livestock body condition, and you know livestock is the major livelihood. Still fair and good in most places. We have looked at the pasture. Yes, it's depleting, but the pasture is not completely depleted. We have looked at the livestock prices. They are still normal. And if that livelihood, livestock, is still okay, and that's what they depend on, why should somebody die when the livestock is still there? What happens normally, you would find that the pasture is gone, the water is gone, the livestock is dead, the crop is gone, then the human being is affected. So it's very difficult for human being to be affected before the livelihoods are lost. So looking at all these factors, we are convinced beyond a doubt that unless we get other reports, what we have now does not indicate any death as a result of drought. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And maybe I should say that on your last issue as to what is government doing for long-term management of this situation, because it is a cycle that repeats itself, and therefore it ceases to be an emergency if we can predict that is going to happen. And that is the reason why we are progressively trying to move away from relief interventions to resilient interventions. That is why in our plan, we did promise livestock insurance so that pastoralists, cattle keepers, can manage the condition of their cattle in a predictable way, and if pasture gets depleted, then they have the resources to buy feed for their livestock. In the last 4 years, we've rolled out in 9 counties the Kenya Livestock Insurance Program. And we have paid out in the last 4 years about 700 million shillings to cattle keepers, let me say livestock keepers around the country, those who keep camel, cows, sheep, goats. We've paid out 700 million. In fact, Just 2 weeks ago, that's the PS for livestock, 2 weeks ago, we paid out 85 million shillings for livestock keepers, as a result of that insurance, for them to buy feed for their livestock. So we are slowly working on long-term interventions. Number two, on that same matter, we, as Government of Kenya, we have developed the National Drought Management Fund. That fund will now address itself to long-term solutions to matters to do with drought, matters dealing with water availability, matters dealing with interventions that come ahead of any of these situations. So while we are pursuing the short-term interventions using relief and what counties are doing and what we are doing now, we are already well prepared to roll out the long-term interventions that will make us avoid the kind of situation that we are in at the moment. Can take another last two. Yes, my friend? CS Kiunjuri will tell you that we have a big program, and part of the intervention we are making today is to make sure that as we anticipate rains next month, we have the capacity to harvest and store that water. Already, PS Mwangi, you have, maybe you should tell the country how many small ponds. I think it is in the region of 8,000, or how many that have been built over the last 8,000 already, over the last maybe Mwangi.
So for the long term, the government started interventions early June last year to ensure that we do proper water harvesting. To this far, we are targeting harvesting over 100,000 cubic meter of water per dam. We have put into place about 31 dams that are going to be constructed before the rains, and also small ponds for household, whereby so far we have done 8,000, and we want to hit 10,000 before the onset of the rains. And that will now add the issue of us mitigating. Every time there is drought, we are coming up with a new plan. And we want to sustain this throughout so that at least in the next 3 years, we see how many of the disputed 4,000 dams in the country that can carry a capacity of between 100,000 to 500,000 cubic meters can be rehabilitated by the next 3 or so years.
Thank you very much. Maybe Eugene will also tell you about why we have a multi-agency team managing from January. We have been meeting from January. That is detailed and briefed to keep the country informed of what is happening with the drought and what will happen when we receive the rains. Eugene, do you want to say that?
Thank you, Excellency. I think Sikolia mentioned that we've just been sitting by and doing nothing until people start dying. That's not the correct position, because government has been working. As you have heard, right from January, we had a multi-agency team bringing together all the relevant ministries, working together, monitoring the situation, and preparing to come in as and when we are required. What we are talking about now is a situation that requires food. So we have the Ministry of Special Programs that I'm leading. We are talking about livestock, and we have CS Kiunjuri, including irrigation and water harvesting. We do have the Ministry of Water because we require water tracking. Anywhere you go, whether it is Katilia or Loima or you go to Tiati, first thing is food. Second thing is water. So we have been working together preparing for this, and we have, as we speak, already set out budgets. Whatever is being released today, every ministry knows what it's supposed to do. And you'll see us moving together. If we go to Turkana, we'll have Kiunjuri addressing the issues of pastoralists, their livestock problems. CS Chelugui will be dealing with water tracking to upscale on what the counties have been doing. I'll be dealing with issues of food, and we'll be working together. We also have issues of conflicts arising because of the scarcity of water resources, pasture, and we'll also have interior, working on peace building, on ensuring that we don't have these cross-border clashes between the Turkana and the Karamoja, between the Pokot and the Tugen. We want to work together and bring our communities together. So we are all working together as one team. We also have health, Sicily Karaoke, because of the situation that is happening. Health is a factor. We'll be working with the counties to work together. For the counties, they started much earlier than the national government. As our first line of defense, counties have done a lot. Governor Nanok in Turkana, I was in Baringo with Governor Kiptis, and we are here now as national government to complement what the counties have been doing. So we will continue working to ensure that no Kenyan loses their life because of this situation. Thank you. We are also, as we speak, preparing for floods. You remember 2 years ago we had drought. In fact, it was very severe that His Excellency the President had to declare drought a national disaster. You remember that was in February 2017. We have not gotten to that level yet. There are levels, as James O'Dwell says, where we get to the alert situation, before we come to the alarm situation, before we reach the emergency situation. We've not reached there yet. And we said from drought, the experts are saying there will be a pendulum swing straight to floods. We're expecting from the Mets that rains will start at the end of this month or next month. We are preparing to ensure that those floods, when they start, we have worked together. We have early warning systems and mechanisms set that will alert the people in Tana River when the floods are coming to move to higher ground, to safer ground. We'll be working, coordinating through the multi-agency team to prevent any loss of life, whether as a result of drought or floods. Thank you.
I think that should serve Mosoku. Uko na maneno gani? Thank you very much. I think the first question, Masoku, in all fairness, should be answered by county government. What we have done as under the PFM is to specifically require every county to have an emergency budget, a percentage of the resources given to counties is a requirement of the law that they provide for emergencies. One of them being the situation we are in. So depending on the size of the resources available to every county, 2.5% is reserved for matters emergencies, as we do the same at the national government. So every county has resources as is required by the law to make sure that they deal with emergency situations. As I have told you, this effort is being spearheaded by Ministry of Devolution, specifically to provide a nexus between county and national government so that there are no duplications and there is no confusion as to the mechanism with which the interventions will be carried out. And as I told you, that nexus also includes our development partners and international agencies. We have one multi-agency team that ensures that all the interventions are synergized and there are no duplications. We have, as you are aware, as a government, we have a comprehensive conservation plan. And CS Tobacco is running with that plan in terms of how many trees we need to plant, what is the planting metrics, what is the short term, what is the medium term. The meeting we had recently, the One Planet meeting we had at the Kigiri is a case in point where the necessary interventions and plans and awareness is being created in communities, in regions to ensure that we manage matters climate change. And I think that's a whole array of what government is doing under the Ministry of Environment. Thank you very much, good people. Have a good afternoon. And let us all keep our eyes on the ball. Asanteni.
We do apologize for cutting into that special by Dennis Okari, but it is available online on NTV Kenya on YouTube, and we will be bringing the rest of that to you shortly. Now, it was imperative that we cut to the Deputy President, William Ruto, to hear what he has to say on the food security situation. Now, what he has said is that he's explained what led up to the situation we're currently in terms of the drought, and he says 1.1 million people are currently affected in general. He says he called them the long rains, but it is actually the short rains that were insufficient. He says efforts on food production have borne fruit, and 2 billion shillings will be spent within this week on water tracking and for food supply. He's also thanked the county governments, whom he said were the first line of intervention, as has the Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa. Now, he's also made mention of the Kenya Livestock Insurance Program and other long-term measures that are in place to address the drought situation. We've also had from the NDMA CEO, that is James Odor, the NDMA being the National Drought Management Authority. Now, he denies that there have been any deaths directly linked to the drought situation. And they both agree that the situation is not what it was in 2017, and therefore say that there is no reason for panic. Their press briefing follows a meeting that included the 4 cabinet secretaries, that is Simon Chelugui, Henry Rotich, who is the Treasury Cabinet Secretary, Mwangi Kunjuri, who is the Agriculture CS, and Eugene Wamalwa, who is the Devolution CS, Simon Chelugui being the Water CS. Also present were various PSs, including Micah Powon, who is the ASOL's, who is in charge of the ASOL's State Department, being the arid and semi-arid lands. We also saw PS Charles Sunkuli and PS Nelson Mara present at that press briefing. Now we take you back to that special by Dennis Okari, and let me introduce it again. It was just another Saturday morning when Martha Wanjiru received a call that would turn her world upside down. Her daughter in boarding school at Gatanga CCM Girls High School in Murang'a County had died. Reports on her death have only led to many questions, as the family, which recently buried their daughter, is still overwhelmed by emotions. NTV's investigative editor Dennis Okari tries to find answers to these pertinent questions. We'd like to warn you that some of the details in this story may be disturbing. Now, here is part 1 of Death in the Dome.
And then she said, we've been trying to reach you. Your daughter is unwell. I would like you to come to Naidu Hospital in Thika.
A phone call that any parent who has a child in boarding school dreads.
Then she called again and asked me, are you driving? I told her, yes, I could. She told me, do not come alone. I panicked.
For Martha Wanjiru Wangai, this was going to be the longest drive of her life. Covering a distance of about 76 kilometers in just under 2 hours, it was a drive into the unknown.
So I picked my phone and decided to call my cousin's sister who lives in Thika, around Del Monte area. And I told her what I had been told by the school. And I told her, you just, please proceed if you know this hospital, go check for me before I get there.
So I was also shaken. I left whatever I was doing and then headed to Naidu Hospital. When I arrived there, I met the principal, an officer from the education office, BOG chair, a teacher, and some others who are there.
A dark cloud hung over the hospital. In this video footage, Martha arrives at the hospital at 10:41 a.m. Moments later, she slips away from the reality that has just dawned on her. Death's cold, sullen stream washed over her. Gone too soon, Abby Noel Samuels was only 15 years old. She was not supposed to be here, but in class for preps.
She was always this energetic person. She was always happy. She was the kind of friend that you'd always need.
You think of Abby, you just think of happiness. You think of like just happy things. And like even if she's not here now, I know that like where she is, she'll just be bringing the same joy that she gave to us.
A heartbreaking send-off for Abby Noel Samuels at her final resting place at the Langata Cemetery. She wanted to be a veterinary doctor one day. Eulogies from her family had one common theme. Noel was just a Form 1 student at Gatanga CCM Secondary School in Murang'a County when she met her untimely death on 9th of March 2019.
In the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, and in the name of the Holy Spirit.
At the burial, no one from her school was in attendance. Noel was only 2 months old at the school. According to medical reports, she was in good health and enjoyed sports. She had no history of illness, no hospital admissions. The mystery surrounding her death and what the family suspects is a cover-up has led to that nagging and unshakable question. What really happened?
I have buried my baby today, but I still feel that somebody somewhere. I have prayed. I have said I will not even be scared of nightmares. I am just ready to sort of even have her visit me and tell me, Mommy, this and this is what happened. Because I just need some form of information that I don't have. Yeah, that's what happened.
What they'd told her initially is Abby on Friday night had run the marathon, had run a cross country which is of 25 kilometers, and she came back and cleaned her clothes, ate her food and said goodnight to her friends and went to sleep, and she never woke up to go for prep. So the students found her sleeping and they called the matron, and then the matron called the head teacher, and then the head teacher found out that she was not breathing properly. On their way to the hospital, she died. That story was not adding up to me. So what the head teacher was insisting initially was she got a heart attack. I was like, this is a 15 going 16-year-old. She's been running relays, short marathons in her school. She's won gold medals and trophies for running. Suddenly runs a cross country and dies. This is not right. There's something we're not being told.
They kept on telling us that she was breathing just a while ago. She was okay. So personally, I think she was long dead.
The school authority has given conflicting information on her death. At one point, the school matron even said she received treatment at the hospital, but the school principal had a different version of the story.
The principal told me that she came running and they took her to the hospital. As they were leaving the school, the dormitory, she told me that there was a bit of pulse at the chest, and she was a bit, she was not cold. So they rushed her to the Naidu hospital, and she was pronounced dead on arrival. When we went to where she was laid, we tried to touch her. She was very cold.
NTV Investigates has obtained CCTV footage of the day she was brought to the hospital. It's 7:37 a.m. at Naidu Hospital in Thika, according to the timestamp on this footage. It's a slow morning inside the hospital, and the night shift nurses and hospital personnel are still on duty. Outside the hospital, nothing unusual. The hospital gates are open to receive patients. At 7:37 a.m., a black vehicle pulls into a parking spot next to the hospital entrance as a female driver calls out to the security guard. The guard runs inside the hospital and calls the nurses on duty to come and help respond to what appears to be an emergency. He rushes back. The female driver then stops the car and comes out. She is the principal of Gatanga CCM Secondary School. What you're about to watch is distressing, and NTV has sought permission from the family to air this as it forms a crucial part of the story. The principal, Miss Veronica Wanjiru, comes out of the car and calls the nurses. It's 7:38 a.m. The back door is opened and two female occupants rush to pull out Noel. It's the school matron and her assistant. A worker at the hospital told us the principal told the nurses not to get a wheelchair or a stretcher because the patient couldn't walk. They carry her to the emergency room. It's still 7:38 a.m. As the nurses attend to her, a physician who was attending to other patients in the wards is called in.
The patient was lying on this bed here. The physician came, saw the patient, and actually even wrote his note on this card.
Were you there at that time?
I wasn't around that time. So when I came in 5 minutes after the patient came in. The physician saw the patient and handed over the patient to me. And I examined the patient again to confirm whether whatever was written on the notes was actually the factual information.
So what did the physician establish?
Yeah, the physician established that by the time the child came, the patient, there were no signs of life at all. We actually called the matron plus the teachers that were there, and we informed them.
Outside the emergency room, the matron and principal were making phone calls. One of them was to Noel's mother. Who had to meet and explain to the family what the doctor clocked in his notes before the arrival of a police officer 10 minutes later. The doctor's report contradicted the school's report that Noel was breathing when she arrived at Naidu Hospital. As a medical doctor, were you able to tell whether it was a fresh body or the girl had died a long time ago?
From the medical background or information that I have, I can be able to tell you that this is a patient who did not die maybe in the last 30 minutes, perhaps earlier than that, because even the patient was cold. And this doesn't really happen immediately after you die. It's something that may take even an hour.
To test this theory, we checked the exact time Noel was brought to hospital and the distance between the school and the hospital. To drive from Gatanga CCM Secondary School to Naidu Hospital in Thika with a relative speed of 80 kilometers per hour, it would take you between 21 and 30 minutes to cover the 17 kilometers distance with slight traffic.
We were driving in Naidu Hospital. While we were driving in, because I was seated on the passenger side, I saw the principal seated outside a pillar of the front, I think the entry of the hospital. And she was holding herself like that. And I panicked. I told my friend, why is this principal seated there like that? And she told me, don't read so much into it. Just go. So I got off the car, but my feet, I was just trembling. So I walked to her, tried to gather some courage, walked to her and told her, Mwalimu, I am Mama Ebi. I shook her hand and she just looked at me with a blank face like that. And then before she said anything, so she looked at me and I looked behind her and I see my cousin sister, who I had called, with my cousin brother, I think she called him, and another cousin sister of mine who lives in Maragua. They were both coming out from the hospital with these somber looks on their faces. And when she saw me, she just came and held my hands. And I asked her, what is it? Just tell me, what is it? She said that she didn't die. She just went to sleep. I was so pissed. I just pushed them aside and walked away. You know, I just felt like my head was freezing. Of course, I lost my mind for a moment there. And I cried my head off, I don't know for how long. And when I gathered courage, I said, I want to see my daughter.
Did Noel die in the principal's car while on the way to hospital? Did it happen immediately she arrived at the hospital, or did it happen in school?
Uncovered the body, the head, and I went straight to the forehead. But I realized she was very cold, you know, as if she was very cold. So for me, from that point on, I thought she must have died a long time.
This medical report on algor and rigor mortis in a temperate region shows the time since death for a body to stiffen and the temperature to go down from warm to cold is between 8 to 36 hours. For investigators, the time of death is just one clue. The next piece of evidence about what happened to Noel lies in the post-mortem exam. The autopsy on Noel's body was done by 3 pathologists representing the family, the government and the school. Dr. Peter Maturi, Dr. Grace Midigo and Dr. Okwema performed the autopsy at Montezuma on 11th of March 2019 at 4 p.m. The post-mortem lasted 2 hours. The autopsy findings on the general appearance, external appearance, internal appearance, cardiovascular system records everything was normal. But the pathologist noted something in the central nervous system.
The main findings we found in this body was she had bleeding into the brain, what we call subdural hemorrhage, and also some subgallio hemorrhage, which then made us to conclude that that was the cause of death, hemorrhage in the brain.
Hemorrhage, and it was a result of what exactly?
Yes, this type of hemorrhage, this was due to blunt force trauma, which means that you get hit by something that's not sharp, which is blunt, and then you bleed into the brain.
Noel's case had been reported at the Kirara police station that Saturday morning. A police officer at the station told us. Beatrice Kiragori, the OCPD who lived in the school compound, was the first one to arrive at the dormitory before Noel was moved to Naidu Hospital by the principal and 2 matrons.
Nani alikuwa anaishi kwa shule? We were told kuna officer alikuwa anaishi ndani ya shule.
That was the OCPD former, the one who was
left.
She. Yes.
Oh, it's a she.
Yes. She was the OCPD. She was housed in the school, but she already moved and she's already transferred.
The police report in our possession reads in part, several students from our dormitory and bedmates have been interviewed on the events between 8th March and 9th March and no foul play suspected. It was established that the student had fallen down from a decker bed on 28th of January 2019, morning while on a dream. It was not brought to the attention of the administration since there were no injuries and nobody, including the deceased, raised any concern. That statement from the police contradicts the autopsy report.
The injury we found, the bleeding found was fresh. It was something that had happened within a short time. So the possibility of the person having been injured 2 months prior to the death is not viable, because then what you find is a clot, a formed clot, or what you call old blood. In this case, there was fresh blood.
The police report says Noelle fell from her bed in January. She never reported the incident like it said and never mentioned it to her mother. But assuming she fell and sustained an injury, what was the distance between her bed and the floor, and what would be the natural position while falling?
The point was on the back here. That's what we call the occipital region. Even when you are dead asleep, normally the body will react and you'll follow either with your hands first or the frontal aspect, you turn on the side. So most times the injuries we get when somebody has fallen from a height or from a bed will be on the side. That's what we call the temporal side or the front. We asked the school matron where the child or the girl where she sleeps normally. And she told us herself that the child was sleeping on the lower bed because of she used to wet the bed, and she's been told to sleep on the lower bed because of that reason. So that's one. The second one was the distance, according to the principal, this girl was breathing when they picked her from the bed, and when even in the car she was breathing, and the distance from the school to the hospital where they went, about 15 minutes drive. And when arriving there, the doctor declared brought in dead.
Reasons why such a young life was snuffed out are still unknown. Who did it and why is still not known. The family believes Noelle was profiled by her teachers and she didn't have an easy time in the school.
When we went for the Form 1 orientation meeting, I'm seated in the school hall full of parents, and all the teachers are giving their speeches and everything, and the deputy principal stands up and gives a speech and then says that, in fact, there's one girl here who is pretending. No, not pretending. She said claiming to be a Jamaican. I'm seated in that hall and I thought, could she be talking about my child? And I didn't take it very well. Abby had her best friend in Form 1 North, who they really got along. So these two teachers apparently told that girl they don't want to see her with Abby.
Back at home, her room, her medals, her pictures are the only things left, plus this bucket of her wet school clothes that her mother was begrudgingly told to pick up.
Can I see where my child was sleeping? I just need some closure to see where my child was sleeping. She refused. She said that it will cause a lot of anxiety in the girls, or some of them had fainted when we broke the news to them and all that. My pastor told her, oh, so the girls will faint. Ours is dead. Why can't we just see? She refused again.
We visited the school to try and get answers from the principal and for the family to get closure on what happened here. A day has passed since her burial, and just standing there looking at the girls go about their cleaning, I couldn't help but think Noelle should have been here doing this.
So we've talked to almost everyone else but the principal. So we came here to try and get her to talk to us, but the teacher on duty says that she's not around. So she's phoned her, but her phone is not going through. So I've left my phone number for her to reach me when she comes back. She stays in the school. So at the moment, it's now a game of waiting. Let's see if she's going to call and talk to us.
The principal of Gatanga CCM Secondary School never called. Noel's mother was too broken to eulogize her daughter. Dennis Okari, NTV Investigates.